My name is Paul Albright, and I reside in Akeley and Nevis area. And I've been living here for over 30 years and practicing art for that length of time.
Can you describe your art practice in your own words?
As far as what I do and where I'm doing it, is a big influence of deciding to move here. And so once moving here, you know, the materials and the subject matter seem to just be obvious. And that is working with wood and working with nature. And so that's where I've started, and that's where I've been hanging out.
Well, you kind of answered this, like, so what materials and mediums do you gravitate toward and why?
Right, and it's hard to break free of wood for a lot of reasons, and maybe even, you know, there's even a spiritual tie after a while. And metal is hard to get into for that, but I do enjoy elements of metal as well, especially the warmer, you know, like copper, something that's maybe malleable or has, you know, options that maybe other metals might not. So I guess I like a little flexibility there.
How has your process evolved over the years?
The obvious answer is, you know, trial and error, many failures, you know, learning the hard way, but I mean, that's the way I learn. And, but it leads to more and more challenges. And I mean, you end up challenging yourself more and being able to offer more. It's kind of it's a process and a progress that seems like you're not getting anywhere, but eventually when you look back, you figure at least I've seen, you know, I would have never guessed to be putting pieces together the way I am, for example, back when I started versus now.
Do you follow any rituals or routines in the studio?
A daily ritual maybe is for me I enjoy music a lot. So it's kind of like a good way for me to, you know, do something else, but it's creative and gets that thing going. It's like a creative cup of coffee, if you will. From there, the creative process can be so different from one day to another day, or 1 week to another week, because it takes me weeks, if not months, to complete something. And so the first concept and the development of that and the variations and the decisions and all of those things are one part of the creative process. And then of course you have you develop a pretty strong visual of what you want to project and, you know, the feeling behind it. But it's a sculpture, so you can't it's nothing immediate about it. And so you have to take in consideration of that and try not to vary too much from that, still allowing to be flexible, but then there's so many stages that you have to, you know, work through at different levels. So at the end, you know, some of the rituals or the procedures can be different. What I do and what I do for people and myself is I really love the atmospheric part of my job, where they sometimes have a place in mind, and so like over half the time. And so it's fun to really take into account for the things around it to make it work and not be the only thing seen in the room, but at the same time, you know, working that balance out between space and the shape.
It was a beautiful property as I drove in. I was just like, ooh, the light was coming through the trees. And
it's so much. It really. I owe so much to the guy that was here before me, because he was a heavy equipment operator, and so he'd move all these boulders and, you know, and he'd make great banks, you know, and planted just, you know, this was just like, just typical of our area, mostly pine and, you know, mostly deciduous in this little, or I should say, a conifer in this particular little spot. But then they had this cleared and then they planted trees into the, so they did a beautiful job landscaping. So, and I'm reaping the rewards because I just so happen to be located in a spot where it's not heavily developed around here yet. And there's a large stretch of woods that's to my north and a large stretch of woods to the south. And so I'm on the north-south corridor of animal highway.
Yeah.
And so I get to see some, bears and on a regular basis.
Nice.
So really, really appreciate that.
Yeah. So how does living and working in the Heartland Lakes influence your work?
I moved here, didn't know what to expect. Really did not know what to expect. People seemed to like it. And then before long, it was kind of like a word of mouth thing. We're open 4 months of the year, let's say, in our part of the world here. But anyway, those people that would come would come back, which was surprised me for one, that people buy more than one piece from you. But still, they would kind of seek me out, and I took an odd pride, I guess, about the fact that I wasn't easy to find. So that the people who wanted to find me, I knew they had a genuine interest. They weren't just spending 5 minutes off the highway, because I'm a tourist attraction. But anyway, it just like all of a sudden, I just seemed like I was the guy to visit, and it was just kind of bizarre, and don't know how to explain it other than I just I must have hit the right note with what people were liking, or the nature and wood. Was fortunate to have like a patron of sort for over 10 years, and it was just a combination of things. For example, he grew up in Nebraska, and he had always heard about this story from a young child about eagle catchers. And then, so he was always interested in that. And then asked if I had ever seen it. But in the meanwhile, too, while we just knew each other, his farm down there, his grandfather had planted black walnut trees. And they had a large wind, which took down a lot of these absolutely huge trees. And the guy I'm talking about was 85 years old at the time. So these trees were, went way back. And then, so anyway, we talked about this eagle catcher concept enough where we did a handshake and a contract then. And he kind of even though that's the concept, he wasn't about to tell me how to do it, or with a visual or anything like that. So then he flatbedded this 2-ton tree up here, and then on a truck, and we put it in the yard. And I think I spent a week just pacing back and forth on the top of that thing, figuring out what I can do and how, and all of that. So I finally got a visual on that would fit with what was kind of halfway thinking. So as I was putting myself in the place of what would be the eagle catcher, which is it's a process of catching an eagle, taking like a secondary feather, and then that would be a warrior's feather. So that's the enactment moment that I was capturing was when they would spring out of the ground, where they were hiding. It'd grab the talon, and then I had to figure out what would I do. So they've got 5 points that can hurt you. When I had reenacted that, I had to also keep in mind of all the structure, the negative space, and there's distortions, and what you can do, what you can't do, and the emotions and all of that. And I thought I got pretty close, so anyway, then when I had done that, and I put a lot of effort on this, but I never did consult any, anyone that was from the tribes. And at the end, I was thinking, well, I should have done that. And so the guy I'm talking about, the Ed, he did have ties. Elder women came over, and in my work shelter, which is 16 by 16 feet, outdoors, has a roof over it, but the walls are open. It's kind of a open atmosphere type thing. And they came over, and oh man, what am I? So I sat in the corner looking at my feet. And they walked in around and around, didn't say anything, and just like, oh no. And then when I looked up though, just like tears were running down their face. And I was just, oh wow, I hit a chord here. Or, I thought it was great. And then what they had done is they had a whole different take on what I had just done. Instead of me reenacting something that I took from a descriptive, process of what they would do, they had totally emotionalized this thing. The eagle represented their hardships. And so it became a totally different sculpture at that point. It was a much better sculpture through someone else's eyes. So I guess my point is that you never quite know what's going to happen, even though you may think you do. And the rewards come at odd times when you don't expect them. And just doing your work, as comfortably as you can is the best you can expect. And the chips fall where they may.
What does community, either physically or artistic, play in your practice?
I'm involved in locally in the Park Rapids. We do an exchange for sculptures every year as some of the medium-sized smaller towns throughout our state do provide opportunity for sculptors to show their work for almost an entire year, and then they flip, or they do that every year, new sculptures every year. And so, and that's been great for the artists, and it's been really, I think, a lot of people have been surprised how, I've been surprised how welcoming it's become in the communities. It's become like it's always been there, so that's great. We had a big windstorm a few years ago and took a lot of the trees down in the small town of Nevis. And so, and one of the, everyone has kind of like their town tree. And to me, Nevis's town tree was this willow tree that was in the middle of what they call Shenanigans Park. It stands by itself, but the canopy is huge. It could shade 100 people if they all crowded in. It's just a wonderful place for it. And willows is like very welcoming type of tree.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it grew up into two sections, and one of the sections it was hollow and getting older, but that thing broke off. So sad to see that break off, when I drove by, and I got a hold of the owners, and I asked if it was okay if I did something with it, and they said that was fine. And so I carved a relief face then of almost like a woman in a dream state. And so, and you've seen, I'm sure, images before of people making like the fantasy, kind of usually bearded or some, sort of fantastical things. And I wanted something different where it was almost like cupped around this person, almost like the person was a part of the tree rather than an image stuck on a tree. And so, and then from there, I wanted, since her eyes were closed, and it was so tucked into her, like it was part of her flesh almost. And so I was able to then have like dream flashes or images that would then just be on the bark as just kind of a flow from a transition from that face to the tree. The next year or two, the tree didn't want to quite die, as some trees do. So they still had venues of water, and so all of a sudden now it became like she had like a hat on, or like she started to like a bouquet on her, and they did some controlling there, but it's and people enjoy it, and it's community,
Yeah.
and it's one of those opportunities that you kind of have to make.
Yeah. What first inspired you to make art? And what inspires you now?
My second grade teacher, Mrs. Melby, and she's even visited here. She's proud of me. So it was so cute because she and along with being a sweetheart, they had those insets in the old '60s built brick hallways or type of thing, and I think there were showcases for like awards and things like that. And so it was I remember about 18 inches deep or whatever. And so that was my first show. I did a complete African scene. So I haven't gone too far from where I started. But no, I was really cool of her to highlight that and give me the whole stage of sort, and so yeah, it takes just once in a while that one person who recognizes something that you didn't know that that it was a positive difference, that you were different from other kids, but in a nice light.
And what inspires you now?
It's twofold. I like developing projects that are on the edge or walking that line, like most artists do, and then. So I kind of live two lives there. And then the other one is where I have been describing. And that's usually an association with someone who is art friendly. Sometimes they have an idea, sometimes they don't. It's usually what I've done before and sometimes not. And so it's always fun to have a bunch of ideas in your pocket. Some people feel very uncomfortable, and I don't blame them. They want an artwork that's done, because how are you supposed to like something that's not done, and it's personal, so it's a big trust thing, and that's what's happening on this last project as well, and they know it's a big gamble, but at the same that I've just been consistent.
Are there any artists, writers, musicians, or traditions that have shaped your perspectives?
I grew up with the isms. So
Yeah.
my schooling was, the expressionisms and so on like that. And then my favorite artists were not that much different, I'm sure, than other sculptor-influenced, Alexander Calder, Picasso, and then of course Da Vinci and a lot of those folk.
How do histories or cultural memory show up in your work?
I'm not intentionally reflecting my culture, but other people have noticed that they say, well, that seems very Norwegian, in some of my work, and it can be something that I didn't think had anything to do with it, like it's kind of a simplicity that it escapes me, because like I say, I don't even recognize that I do it, so it's something that's there. And other people recognize it in my culture, so and they've described it to me, and so I don't know if I dare look into it any further, because
Right. Why do you feel compelled to make art?
It's what I wake up thinking about. It's what I think about before I go to bed. It's what I do during the day. It's pretty much me, and I just accept it. And there's a lot of blessings behind it, and there's a whole bunch of curses that come with it too. It really does, I think, help a person just feel like they're here doing what they should be doing. Even though it's a day-to-day thing, it still feels good to do it, and it just feels natural, I guess would be the way to say it. Just feels like what I should be doing, and I like it.
What stories and emotions are you hoping viewers take away from your work?
It's a tough thing to try to answer. You think you're hitting it sometimes, but sometimes people will say things because they think you want to hear something. And if you're the artist, in this case, hearing the things that they happen to get right that you wanted to hear, it might not be the truth. It might be something to appease. And so I have to be very careful to what I allow into that as a reality, because it's not as dark as that might sound. And it's more like I've seen it too many times, and sometimes a person can really want and need that and receive it well. And other times it can not necessarily be a truthful thing. And so I'm not like on the guard of that sort of thing either, because I really love the way people either express or interpret maybe their own take on it. And it's always fun to hear it, and part of the reason why I don't title things too is because it's just fun to get, there's no right or wrong answer, and with a title you have a more tendency to, you push it. I know that they're important, they can be very important on a piece, but sometimes not. And so, but I like the open interpretations, the different varieties, and I think people are, my stuff is a little easier to like. It's something they probably don't feel threatened by. It's something that there's not, am I going to understand this? The threat of feeling insufficient, of understanding someone's creative message.
With that said, how do you define success and fulfillment in your artistic life?
Becoming more comfortable with myself in terms of confidence, and I just think that confidence level sometimes gets you started sometimes, or gets you at least through a difficult part of the process. Because I'm not alone. That self-doubt kicks in, and it's a hard battle, and you have to remember, well, you've done it before, so you might fail a few times, but you gotta keep doing it. I like to count my blessings.
Yeah.
And so that helps me put myself in a spot, because everybody can get a little down on themselves or, funky and stuff, and just try to remember the big picture. And then I feel, wow, how fortunate am I to live in a country that you can do this, in a part of the world that you can be paid for. I mean, you're not making a lot of money, but I mean that you're following your dream and you're doing this. It's just like, wow, you're kidding.
Yeah.
So you really have to help. It's like when you get into a funk, you just have to try to remember that, these are exceptional times.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, the 2 generations before me, good luck finding an artist and making a living at it.
True.
In the North Woods.
Right. But yeah, what is next for you, and what are you dreaming about artistically?
I don't think too far off into the future, and I have just a few too many projects that I want to do that I can realistically ever get to. And so, which is better than not having enough ideas. I'm going to be, this isn't letting any cat out of the bag. When in high school, I was always the one, our kid, but back then we made floats and parades. But every one was kinetic. So every float that we made, I had a kinetic feature to it. And so it was, when, it was always, you knew who you were playing against every, homecoming. So it was just like one year I had a mechanical hand that was big enough where you could stand inside and I'd be pulling the hands, and the hands would be grabbing it on this float going down the thing. And another year, I was inside of a bird, and then we had, the bird was flying down, and so every year was always something kind of fun and whimsical and sometimes dangerous, but it was a hoot. And I guess where I'm going with that is I kind of like some of that. And I've got a fun, hopefully, project coming up here this fall, maybe in the next year, and someone's putting a miniature, they've already got a miniature golf thing going on, but he wants to put, his idea is to put kind of an eclectic assortment of holes. So there's no consistency of what one is to the other one, but they all have art they all have an element of art going on. And I mean, how cool is that idea? And I'm doing this tree that I might have a figure tied in with a human figure. I don't know how much I'll play with it. Kind of like a Wizard of Oz type thing, who knows? But then, the canopies that are actual canopies that are like umbrellas with rivets and rebars and holding a heavy canvas that will act as shade and also a rain protectant. And so each canvas will have a hole strategically placed in the lowest part of that balance that you've got going on these canopies. And so it's a 3-part course, and an 18 foot tall tree with these 3-4 canopies that shade you and so on, and you're playing underneath all of that, and it's still way above your reach. And so the first one would be you put your ball inside in the hollow of the tree, and you push down just like a pinball machine. It's spring-loaded, and you push a button, and the spring pushes the ball through the center of a tube that goes through the top. It's right to the top of the tree, and it lands on the top canvas and kind of Rube Goldberg's its way down to finally the ground, and then it goes through the root system, and that's your first shot. And then the second one, so it's just, I'd like the idea of just this kind of combination play thing. And I don't know where that comes from, but I'm excited, as you could tell.
Yeah,
to do
sounds fun.
That one. Yeah, anyway, I've got some of my own projects that I'd like to do, and this one that I just described to you is a fun offshoot of what I typically do. But I like the construction part of that. And then I want to do some metal works, very geometric, simplistic interpretations of animals as well, sometimes kinetically. And so I'm going to play with that, probably more bright colors, because I don't get to do bright colors in this. I don't do much bright colors in the wood sculptures. And then I've got a couple wood projects that are in the making of, in the process of being made.
My heart is bursting from my chest. I can't sit still or I surely will be killed by cardiac arrest. I cannot hang out as you might have guessed. Can't bring myself to give you my best. I cannot hang out as you might have guessed. Can't bring myself to give you my best.